Are you interested in real estate investing but not quite sure where to get started? Do you want to get the know-hows on creating ongoing passive income using the buy and hold strategy? Hi, I'm Janice Bowles, licensed realtor and co-founder of B Premier Ventures, a real estate development and consulting firm where we buy and beautify distressed real estate, renovate it, and resell for profit. With over 15 years of investing experience, B Premier has extensive knowledge in rural land development, fix and flips, and rental acquisitions. B Premier's current portfolio consists of properties within Florida and Virginia. Our firm's services includes investor project consulting, project management, and group coaching. For more information, visit our website at bpremierventures.com and schedule a complimentary discovery session or subscribe to our email list. It's free. Follow me on Instagram at Janice Bowles for additional real estate investing tips. B Premier Ventures, we buy and beautify.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Let's Do It Talk Show. It's your girl, Ladrine Howard Peterson, the CEO and founder of Do It, delivering on ideas and thoughts. And you know what I do in a nutshell. I help to turn dreamers into doers. And I do it from two aspects. I do it from the aspect of career development, interview preparation, resume writing. You have an issue on your job, I am your girl. And then I do it from a business aspect. If you're looking to start a business, you have a business and you're looking to expand opportunities in your marketing process, I am your girl. Here on the Let's Do It Talk Show, we were primarily created for entrepreneurs. However, we know that the entrepreneur consists of a whole person. So with that, we talk about faith, finances, we talk about the future from a business and a career aspect, and then we also talk about family and relationships. Today is the first Monday of the month, and it's all about faith. It's all about faith. So we're going to be talking about coping, coping. And we're going to go into it. We're going to talk about coping from the standpoint of a pandemic. We're going to talk about it from a stance of dealing with loss, especially around the holidays. And then we're also going to talk about how you can use your creativity to help you to engage with some coping mechanisms and some coping techniques. So here on the show today, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go like deep into my weekend, right? Because as you all know, most of you who know me or are friends with me, you all know that I have over the past 3 weeks, I have been dealing with the loss of my mom. And with that, it has been the most difficult thing that I have ever had to face in my life. In my 49 years of living, this has been the most difficult thing. However, and I mean this in all sincerity, God has granted me a level of peace and comfort that is definitely unexplainable. And I mean that Ephesians 3:20, unexplainable. I can't explain it. When people are calling me and talking to me about various things, I'm answering the phone like, hello? And they're like expecting something else. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more. And as we go into the discussion, I'll talk more about it. But it's still fresh for me. So I don't plan to go into the details and breaking everything down. However, I'm very transparent, very open. However, the conversation moves and goes, that's how it will become. So I'm sure all throughout out that I will be saying things that are related to, but I didn't want to go through like a rundown of that. But that's basically been what my 3 weeks have been about. But the great part of it is on yesterday and officially today, my mom's birthday. My mom was born in a house. So on December the 6th, she actually was born. But by the time they went to the hospital, this that old South Carolina stuff. By the time they went to the hospital, it was December the 7th. So on her birth certificate is December the 7th. We have always celebrated both days. And funny story, all of the grandkids, including my children, were going to fight me because I was like, oh, we're not playing with insurance money or anything. We put December 7th on everything. And for those who attended the services on the obituary, you see that they won. And December the 6th was placed on the obituary. But nonetheless, we celebrated her birthday. We went to the graveside and we released balloons. And we have been really focusing on all of the great times. My mother, like, overly, I mean, it's probably not a such thing as overly love, but my mom, that's the only way that I can really like describe it. My mom, like, overly loved me. I know I'm on me real hard. I love myself. And I honestly feel like my mother loved me more than I love myself. So it's like the only person that could love me more is God. So I'm not going to linger on this, but I wasn't going into the whole weekend thing. But one other thing I did want to share is that in the midst of all of this, I got my certification to be a Christian life coach. So all my friends who have been getting it for free, now I'm playing. But so I will be rolling out my program in terms of what I'm offering in terms of coaching programs with that in January. So I'm so excited and looking forward to that, and also grateful that God gave me the grace and the stance to actually get through the class because I wasn't sure if that was going to happen. So that's my weekend. That's my past 3 weeks. That has been my life. So in terms of the topics today, we're going to jump right into it. I have someone who is sort of taking over as the host. Reverend A. Colette Rice is with us today, and she's going to be leading the topics on coping during COVID-19 or a pandemic, and also the loss of a loved one. And then I have the beautiful Latasha with me as well, and we're going to be talking about a program that we're doing. So, Reverend A. Colette Rice, how are you today?
I'm well. I'm very well. Thank you. Excited as always to be here with you and Tasha.
Excited to have you on the show. And I realized that it had been a while when you were like, what platform? You're normally always on the show. You haven't been on the show since we've been in the.
No.
We got to fix that. We got to make
I have not.
Don't do me
What's
like
your
that.
problem? Okay.
Don't do me like that. But yeah, so you can give an overview if you want to give any overview of yourself. I know most people already know you, but see, I already had to introduce you as Sweatpants and Chill. We're not going to do this, okay? But okay.
No, we're not doing this.
So it'll come. And then we have Latasha Briscoe. Hi, Tasha.
Hi, Tasha.
Look, I'm sitting here. I forgot I was on mute. Hey.
Do you want to give an overview and let everyone know who you are?
Well, I am the owner and creative director of LB Innovations Events. I am the visionary behind that Sweatpants and Chill retreat. And I am the creative strategist where I help busy moms, busy women figure out what it is that they really need to do with their brands.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
So, Reverend A. Colette Rice, who is the executive of Mount. It's like I'm playing. I'm just like going to force you to get a bio.
Don't you do it.
I'm not. So let's actually jump right into the topic. Funny thing, the one thing that I will say to lead into it is the timing.
Yeah.
So I reached out to you on November the 12th.
Right.
With the topic of coping, and it was COVID-19 and also the loss of a loved one, because this is something that we do on an annual basis. Right. Had no idea like that it would be for me. You know, I feel like God and his preparation really prepared me. And there's so many traces of things along the way. So yeah, this was orchestrated by God, like before it even before all of the things that we know had manifested. So I'm super like excited and always waiting for God to do something, but he has been like really showing off. So I'm excited for the show tonight. And I will let you take it away and take lead on this. I'm following your lead.
All right. Well, let's just jump right in and talk about um this you talked about timing, and I think that one of the things we can all agree on is that this term that we've heard this year over and over again is unprecedented times, right? We've heard that more. So when we think about, I tried to wrap my mind around it earlier today when I think when I was just trying to recall the events of just 2020,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they were too many to number of the moments, the seasons. Just seems like one whole entire season of grief on top of grief on top of grief on top of grief. When we think about how many from and not the normal cycle of life that we think about when we associate it with grief, but the shockers, the ones, and even today, the young lady I saw a lot of posts today about the young lady who played with Holly Berry in Baps. Her name will come to me again, but she died. Yes,
Oh
she
my
died
goodness.
today, I believe. Today, Natalie,
I know
Natalie,
exactly who you're
yeah,
talking about. I
Natalie.
don't watch movies, but that's one where I know the line where she was at the airport with LL Cool J. You a pastor, so I can't say it, but yeah, I
Okay,
know
yeah,
exactly who you're talking about.
yeah. And then she played in so many other sitcoms and things like that. But even just today, so I'm like, oh my God, like from the beginning to the end. And then, of course, what we heard in terms of Latasha, and then, of course, your mom. And so it's just been a whole kind of glob of things, you know what I mean, that have really caused grief. And so when we hear it this year, unlike none other, unprecedented is really what it really is, never known before. Like, who would have thought in our lifetime
Yeah.
that, who would have thought, really, when you think about it, that um and when we kissed 2019 goodbye, we was like, oh, 2020 vision 2020. We were like, oh, 2020 gonna be lit, gonna be
It's
live,
gonna be big, you know
it's
what I'm
gonna be
saying?
big, right? We were like, big. We left it big, that's all. And it's big, all right. It's been big, all right.
Yeah.
And trying to, when we ushered it in, we just never imagined that it would deliver the continuous blows, not just one blow, but one blow after another, after another, after another. That, when you talked about, we used to say weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. Well, we felt like you get knocked down, and before you were able to even get up, boom, boom. So we had certainly, the George Floyd, we had the Black Lives Matter and the movement, and
Right.
the grief that we experienced with Aubrey, Ahmaud Arbery. And we could just go on and on and on about the intense level of pain that we've had to endure in this year. And, you know, and then Corona, was just one of those things where we were like, maybe if we sit down, so okay, we're gonna sit still, for a couple of weeks, and we're gonna this thing's gonna be knocked out, and by the time the spring rolls out, we're gonna be good, right? And here we are, getting ready to, it smack that winter, is this month, and we're now we're hoping for next spring, if you will, that we'll be able to see and envision that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And one of the things that we've all had to do in this process is, to your point, develop a level of coping skills that we had never really amassed before. Like, we thought we had it, you know what I mean? We thought we could. Anybody that's ever been acquainted with grief, when I thought about what we talked about last year and what you had gone through then, you would have never imagined that a year later you would be going through. But I've learned that there's a tender mercy in everything. I talk about this all the time, and I feel so strongly about that in the midst of our trauma, in the midst of our grief, I believe, like Jeremiah in Lamentation 3, when he examined the ruins of Judah and he was really lamenting about what he saw, right? He had to not only recall, he then had to recall everything that he had seen and everything that God had already done. Right. The interesting thing about our lives is that we can quickly have amnesia. We can really, God, when we sit down, we've had to sit this year, we've had to sit in some stuff this year. And in the sitting, we've then been forced to really think about what matters, right? What God has really, really brought us through, the things that he's seen, every river, every valley, every mountain, we're like, oh my gosh. And yet, and not even to imagine what we're going to have on the other side of COVID, like the testimonies that are going to emanate from this space as we think right now. When we think, we can't help but think, about all the things that God has done. But that does not minimize, the aspect of grief and how important it is for us not to get numb, right, or pretend that we're not going through. I really do, though, believe that it's very important that we sit in it. We've talked about this before, that I talked about Sark's book. I like her book because she makes it very, very clear when she talks about grief. And her book is entitled Glad No Matter What, right? Mm-hmm. Taking grief and loss and turning them into two opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. And so she says about grief that grief has a way of sitting up and insisting that you take notice. And I think one of the things that we've been taught, which is counterintuitive, particularly as Christians, that, we say those things, we say trite things. Oh, they're in a better place. Oh, they're with the Lord. If they had the opportunity, they wouldn't want to come back here, and we say all of these things, but they're really not, they're not authentic, and they're not true about what we learn. And what we know is, yes, God is a keeper, and yes, he gives us supernatural strength, and yes, he promised that I'm going to be with you in the storm. He promised, that he promised that he would do it, and he's faithful, to his promises.
So let me just step in right here.
Okay.
So most people who know me know my situation with death. So we're just going to intertwine all the topics all together. Mm-hmm. Know my situation with death. Last year, November 2nd, 3rd, my cousin, one of my favorite cousins, and my uncle passed within hours of each other. And then other extended family members in that same. So it was 6 family members in 1 month. I thought that was it. All of the things that were leading up to it, I thought that was it. So just imagine, the whole thought of my mother. Right. My mother. So when you imagine, not in it, but when you imagine, because as you go through deaths, whatever certain situations happen, you get the thought of, oh my God, what if, and all of this, I couldn't even have a conversation with my mother about life insurance. I just couldn't do it.
Right.
So I honestly thought that if my mother passed, that I would come like this close to like almost dying. Like, and I don't mean that like jokingly or like overstating it. I mean that because of the hurt that I felt from other people in the various ways, my mother, but here right now, what God is doing, his promise, like, I don't care if after we get off this call, God, don't do it while we want to call. But I don't care if after we get off this call, my state of being,
right,
my comfort, and everything that he's granted me, even if it switches and I go into the in-depth agreement mode,
right,
he has done enough for me that I couldn't even complain. He has already proven and shown to me that he is real and that he is a keeper, So I know, like, this experience, the saddest thing in my life, but yet that whole thing in terms of I've already been deep in and have a deep relationship with God, but I'm trying to, like, I can't even explain to people about like my situation and what's going on. He prepared me for this. And oh my God, you like how you can't be prepared for your mother's death. He prepared me for this, and through every moment of it has rocked me in the cradle of his arms. And I know that it's nobody but him. I keep going in the mirror, like sometimes like, girl, go ahead and cry if you want to cry. And I'm just trying to, because it's so hard to even believe and to wrap my mind around. So when you talk about God's promise, that's it. Can't nobody tell me nothing about nothing. And like I said, if it's a lesson or he's sending me, or that whole dangerous parent, I ain't messing with you no more with that. But if I am on a path to go through that again, I'm like, Lord, send me. And before I was like, don't send me, push me, and then let me know. But it is that thing, because I know that no matter what, he will see you through and he will keep you in the midst of. So go ahead. I had to like step in when you said promise, because oh my God, like he had
real talk. That's real talk. And the thing is, and I really do believe that what he brings us to, he will see us through. Yes. And the reality, and that's not a cliche. I know people like, oh, that's true. No, that's real talk. And it proves out Revelation 12:11 when he says, you overcome. You overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. Yeah. And, the reality of it is, if you ain't been through nothing, you ain't got nothing to talk about. But when you've been through, something, and the Bible says that strength goes to strength and faith goes to faith. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there are seasons when you look back, and I'm sure every step of the way, you can look back at moments in your life when you thought like, oh my God, like, and even when you were going through, you felt, unless you have, so people are given, God gives us all a measure of faith. Mm-hmm. Some people have the gift of faith, right? Yeah. And so those that had a gift of the faith are your, what you worried about? Oh, it's gonna happen. I mean, they're just already there. They're from 0 to 60 and they stand on 60, right? But there's some of us who have the measure of faith, right? And then, but it grows with each mountain. You know what I mean? The mountains that Inez Andrews said, Lord, you don't have to move the mountain, but give me the strength to climb. You don't have to take away my stumbling block, but lead me around, right? And so when you see, sometimes the mountains seem so insurmountable. They seem like they are really there. Or if we all just sit in any given moment that we could think of in our lives along our journey that was difficult, we were like, God, and that's your testimony. That's how you can say, had it not been for the Lord on my side, I don't know where I would be. That's where that's birthed out of, right? Where you looking around, you like, God, I don't know how to do it unless you tell me, and I don't know the way unless you take me by the hand and lead me. right? And once you see the manifestation of, I like you, when I would walk around the church and I'd have my mother by the hand and people would say that, and me and my mother were like this, me and my dad were like this. So I know, right. And I would walk around with her and people would come up to me and they would, have this look on their face and they would be like, take care of mama, and they would say things like that, or oh, and then they would kind of, you could see it in their eyes where they would get this glazed over look and they started thinking about their mom who was no longer with them. And in those moments, I like you too. And I felt that way. My dad and I were like glue. We were just like stuck like glue. And if you had told me that I wouldn't lose my mind when he checked out, I would have told you, not the devil was a lie. I would have told you had to be lying. I just would have never, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And it was the same thing with my mom too. So I understand that. But the thing that we do know, right? Because we know God is real. We can't take, we can't pretend. You know what I mean? We're not in a fantasy. The Bible says it's appointed once every man wants to die. You know what I mean? We know that death is imminent. You know that's real. So people who, like, when they lose a loved one and they're like, God, how did we knew that was coming. That's why you anticipated how you would feel when it did happen, right? Yeah. Right. And so at the end of the day, we just have to position ourselves to, as I said, when, God has said to me each time when I suffered that level of pain, this is where the rubber meets the road. I am that, like he told Moses, I am that I am. I'm everything you need me to be. And I'm going to prove that out if you let me.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and I want to say, you get the supernatural strength, but the strength doesn't mean for somebody who's listening and they're like, I am, like I went to bed at night and I was hoping when I got up that it was a dream. Like, I was like, I just, and when I woke up, I'm like, it's not a dream. Like, she's really gone. Like, I'll never hear her voice again. I'll never hear, you have all of those moments. And so, to those who are grieving in this season on two fronts. Okay, when we think about grief and we look at it for everything that it is, we have to understand that we grieve. First of all, I do want to say this, because let's just start with the pandemic piece and then realize how many things we grieve. So when you think about it, Latasha, Ladrine, when you think about it, think about some of the other things outside of the loss of a loved one that one may be grieving, especially now. That's not rhetorical. That's right. A real question.
So one of the things, like, for sure, like the loss of jobs.
Come on. Okay.
Someone that was on my prayer call, her husband lost his job. He began to drink or different things. He began to act differently.
Okay.
He committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
So it's like that mindset thing, and finances is one of the things that's causing people to it's affecting their mind. And one of my nephews, one of his friends, he woke up on his daughter's birthday, and because he didn't have money to buy her a gift, he killed himself. Oh. So it's really it's a lot of losses that are going on, that this pandemic is really causing people to suffer even more in silence, in isolations, where I think that like me, introvert, so I have my party in here, but every now and then I need a 2-hour conversation with somebody, or something needs to go down so that I can, make sure that I'm connected with the world. But it is a serious thing, and it's so much easier to hide now.
Right.
It really I was going to say too, that loss of connection and companionship, because a lot of people, I can sit in my house all day long and not be bothered, not worry about a phone ringing or anything, but there are people that need that connection, and without that, like that mental breakdown it's rough. And like you said, Drain, people can hide it because nobody is asking about it. And if they assume that that person under normal circumstances is okay, they may not think to call and ask, are you okay? Do you need me to do a drive-by? And that right there, like that's a major piece. I mean, we see our children going through it with the loss of being able to just go to school.
Right.
You know, so a lot of them are suffering from that connection with their friends. But adults have access to drugs and everything else that they, compensate that missing piece with. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, like you said, suicide and other things is the result of all of that.
And one of the listeners, I'm sorry, one of the listeners, Zakia Butts, who always have the most amazing comments, she said not being able to escape yourself. Some people use work or going out to not have to deal with themselves.
Wow. See, that's where I was getting ready to go with that. Zakia, you said?
Yes.
Yeah. That's good. Because, see, the thing is, right now, contrast that with before, even those of us who are introverts and even those who can chill and are your own best company, which I'm good company to me. I have my own conversations, I have my own vibe, I do my own thing. I ain't got to argue, I ain't got to compromise, I ain't got to do any of that, So it's really a blessing. But we grieve when our privilege is taken away. So we still have the privilege of, or pre-COVID, you had the privilege of going out when you felt like going out. You know what I mean? When you wanted to say, okay, all right, I'm tired of the house. There have been times pre-COVID when I said, I'm going to go take a ride. Oh, I'm going to run down here. Oh, I'm going to go treat myself to dinner. Oh, I'm going to go take in a movie. Oh, spa day. And we can go down the list of the things that have been taken away. That's a loss. That's a loss when your privilege has been taken away, to whether it's connect with a family member, whether it's to hug, I grieve hugs right now because I'm used to hugging up on my family and I'm a hugger, I'm a kisser, I'm a lover, and all of that is totally removed from us. And the truth of the matter is we can hide. And then when we hide, see, because there's also a loss of accountability, right? Because when you, as Zakia said, when you have to connect with other people, it brings you in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could get up. For instance, I'm real particular about first thing in the morning brushing my teeth. I know some people don't do that. I don't understand why, but anyway, but you could get away with not combing your hair without brushing your teeth, without doing if you were contained, right? But when you got around somebody else, they'd be like, "Oh, drink, what's up with you, drink? Oh, boo, you better go. You better handle that. We have people who care about us and love us, who can bring us in and help to, establish and maintain that accountability. And in this space where we're isolated, that also, so it's the loss of which I just believe, and we can say we're introverts all we want, but we still, even when we're introverted, we're still doing things to help people. It's still a level of connection, even when we're doing it in our own way, right? Because I'm in ministry, I have to go in, because if I don't go in, I'm not going to be right when I come out. You know what I mean? There are, for real, I have to really go in so that when people say crazy stuff and do crazy stuff, I can be grounded and rooted and all of that. So because as my coach once told me, that when the margin between your load and your limits diminishes, you don't know what's going to come out of you. Right?
That's good.
And so that's why it's so important that we do take the time to, have this space and time.
And Phoenicia said, for me, I've learned through this time to allow myself to be vulnerable.
Oh, wow.
So that's a really good one. So you can touch on that, but I want to say something about the hugs. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
So real funny. I never used to hug people back in the day. I'm like, no, no. And then I became a hugger.
Wow.
So at the funeral, it was very limited, but everybody come in hugging. I'm like, I'm elbowing everyone.
Right.
I'm like, boom, 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 boom. But like after the funeral, I longed for a hug.
I know.
I kid you not. I longed for a hug.
Real
And I
hug.
was like, oh my goodness. My friend brought me some cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed her a hug. I'm like, she be in the house by herself. She lived by herself. I grabbed her and I did. I like seriously, when I tell you like long for a hug, like I'm serious. Like never have longed for a hug. I long for a hug. You better be glad she gave me one. I came sit on your step. Be like, come outside for a minute. But yeah, but I seriously long for a hug. And it was surprising to me, but I sincerely long for a hug. But vulnerability.
Yeah, and so vulnerability, I think that's true too, and that's a part. Now, first of all, vulnerability is good, but we got to contrast that with control.
Yes.
Because I think that the fact that one of the things that COVID has done for us in some regards, not in all, right, across the board, but it has also, diminished, our control over some things, which is really a good thing, because oftentimes we can get a routine and we can be, at a pace and doing our own thing and so in control that we were totally discombobulated when somebody had to tell you behind, go somewhere and sit down.
Yes.
Right. And you like, what? What? Because I'm used to, and then it was a progressive reveal. You know what I mean? It was incremental and gradual, because the longer, March, we was like, oh, okay, it's like a snowstorm. Snowstorm, you stand on your head for a couple days, a couple weeks, if you know it's going to bring about, a certain outcome. But after a while, it was like, okay, we're getting in okay, what? Okay, it's May now. And you mean, what? We still, I still gotta be content. We had to give up birthday celebrations. We had to give up graduation. We had to give up vacations. We're my line sisters, we were scheduled to go to Cancun for our anniversary, for our 40th anniversary. And we had to cancel our trip. And it was just, and that's somebody else, you tripping but that was something that we were forced to do. And when you had, like I said, it was gradual that we had to reckon with all of that. And all of that was a way of each step was getting us closer to the reality that we were in the middle of a pandemic, like real talk, real live.
Graduations, and especially like for the high schoolers who were being scouted.
Right.
Like whole different mindset. I mean, and the way that funerals are. At one time you couldn't even bury them, and like now the 25 people limit, and I had to tell some of my family members, have you seen her? It was just
but think about that. Now take that and magnify that by, we got 9,000 members, and when we had to deal with in 1 week's time. It was in 1 week's time when we started out with that Sunday, when I think they had, which was the last Sunday we were able to have service.
I got in
there. 250 people. We were limited to 250 people. And that Monday, wrapping your mind around on a Monday saying, okay, those who have funerals scheduled this week, we got to make sure, okay, and then making a shift and saying, okay, sanctuary, okay, chapel, how we going to do, can we do it? And then Tuesday, it's not 250, it's 50. And then Wednesday, it's not 50, it's 10. And then Thursday, us having to say, we can't do a funeral here because we can't even open a church with 10 people. We can't do a function with 10 people. And so all of that was you're talking about grieving. like grieving the fact that you can't grieve, grieving the fact that, I mean, in that season, like when we were on total shutdown, you think about people who couldn't even go to they couldn't even go to the funeral homes. They had to say to us, we're just gonna wait and do a memorial service for, I can count our members who we had to say, okay, we can't do it this way. And I'm gonna tell you, you want to see something to break your heart, when you're talking about a homegoing, right? Because this is what we do. We do a celebration of life.
Right.
And when you think about somebody who's lived their life, a battle fought, victory won, and they're going on home to be with the Lord, and they're expecting their casket to be rolled down to that altar, and they're expecting to have, a homegoing celebration, and there's songs to be sung, and for us to, shout it over and sing, how I got over, my soul looks back and wonder, because when I get to see Jesus, and all of that, and all that just came to, and then let's think about now take that and think about, as we're seeking for empathy in this season, think about those who really don't know the Lord. So they don't even understand, you know what I'm saying? Like I can't even articulate how much grief, in this season, and for
that's real talk right there. Every day I pray for those who are not believers. I pray because even us as believers, we're having a time. You know what I mean? We're going through it. Yes. Just imagine. So that's a whole in-depth, like serious thought that I have, and I pray for them every morning. Every morning. But one of the things I will say, Mount Ena has done an exceptional job with the virtual. Although, like that last day I got in there and somebody coughed in the sanctuary, I looked back, she talking about she had allergies. That's another story. But I was like,
you better get out of here.
Yes. But
literally.
From a virtual standpoint, but I know that it's also because I know Jesus. I know God. So my house, right here upstairs, wherever I am, is my sanctuary. So I'm able to feel. The one thing that it was that altar call. So thank you so much. It's good to have friends in high places. But in the altar call, those prayers really helped me. I was missing those. But everything else, you are doing a wonderful job. Singles ministry, the additional Bible studies when you did Dangerous Prayers, the traditional, I do Bible study 10 o'clock and also at 7 o'clock. I do all of it, but it's so much stuff that it keeps me contained, and it's also helping me grow even further my relationship with God. So I'm so thankful for Mount Ena.
It's sustaining, and I appreciate that, and I praise God for that, because there are a lot of churches, and I always tell this to the team so that we have a better appreciation for where we are, because it's nothing but the grace of God, who has really positioned us. Think about the churches, and I grieve for those who actually had to shut their doors because they were not, or on a smaller scale, you know what I mean, who really don't have the technology, that enables for them to have that level of outreach. And think about the pastors that are grieving and people who are grieving because they're unable to fellowship with the saints, and those who are looking up on Sunday saying, where do I go? Because I don't have anywhere to go. We're talking about, remember, privileges, that there was a time when we could get up on Sunday morning and say, well, I couldn't afford that because, but people could say, I'm going to church today, or I may not go to church today. I watch online. We, Bedside Baptist, this whole year been a Bedside Baptist. This whole year has been converted to a Bedside Baptist. And you talking about grieving, like when I got up one Sunday morning, and I think I might have shared this with you, but I laid there and I cried like a baby because I was baptized at 9. I've been a mess. I was, you turned a mess to a miracle, thank God. But at the end of the day, that's all I've known. Like Sunday morning was sacred. And Sunday morning there, I never had that, you know, even option to lay in bed on a Sunday morning,
Right.
you know, for as long as I could remember. And for a while, again, it was like snow days. Oh, I'm gonna go here and make some waffles, and I'm gonna sit here and hold that service and that. But after a couple of weeks, I'm like, and I got up one Sunday morning and I cried and I cried and I was like, where is Sunday? I'm sitting here on Sunday morning asking, where is Sunday? And I grieved the fellowship. I grieved the reunion. My Sundays were family reunion for me. My sister, we worship together. I worship with my niece. I worship with my great niece, new baby, Sage, you know, running in there. Oh, you know, all of it was a reunion. It was fellowship. It was all of that. And I grieved that like a crying baby. And I had to, you know, when we say what do you know, some of the things as we move on, you know, you ask yourself, how do we get past this? Well, one of the things that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to have to prioritize.
Yeah.
Opportunities over obstacles. So in everything, because I really believe that there's life in every aspect of what God gives us, even through our grief, even through our sorrow. When the Bible says that all things work together for the good for those that love the Lord and are the called according to, you know, we're reminded in Thessalonians that we don't grieve as others that have no hope, right? We're reminded, okay, you grieve, that means you gonna grieve.
Right.
It just means you're not gonna grieve like somebody who doesn't have any hope. You know, he promised beauty for ashes in Isaiah 55. I'm going to give you beauty for ashes. That means, you know, you're going to mourn, you're going to grieve, but I'm going to bring you that. I'm going to give you joy for a spirit of heaviness. I'm going to allow you to put on this. I'm going to give you a garment of praise. Right, is what he offers us. And so we have to prioritize in everything. Okay, what is the opportunity? Is it an opportunity to reconnect with family? Is it an opportunity to learn some things about yourself that you didn't know? Is it an opportunity to right some wrongs?
Right.
I want to say, if you ain't done nothing else, you know, in life for somebody, you holding a grudge over some dumb stuff, over some silly things or whatever, you know, and the old saints used to talk that since we won't talk that no more. We don't say get your house in order. You know, we don't nobody tell nobody that anymore. But, you know, get your house in order. Do the things that you have to do. The second thing is that we have to prioritize insight over eyesight. You know, it's not about what you see. It's about what God is seeking to reveal, because we walk by faith and not by sight. So asking God, what is it in this, whether it's COVID, think about all of the businesses, Latasha, you know, all the opportunities, all of the mammoth ideas that are coming out and being birthed. Look at the things that people are developing that were not even considered before. We would have never considered a robust online ministry to this extent if we could come bopping in there every Sunday. God, that is good all the time. God is good. You know, if we weren't doing all of that, we would not even have considered some of the things that think about. I'm looking around now and I'm thinking, look, teleworking. We used to fight. When I worked for the government, I had to fight to get one day off every 2 weeks to get an AWS day. Now you got folk working from home and productive, you know, for almost a year. And then they tell me, oh, indefinitely, you can stay home indefinitely. You know, think about the ingenuity that's being birthed out of this season. I was reading online about food delivery and co-ops that they're developing and doing all of these things to keep it. And I know that there's a downside and I know there's suffering, and I'm not trying to minimize that, but I am saying that we have to seek to, you know, ask God to give us insight and show us, you know, God, what is it that you want us to see that can come out of this? And then the very last thing that I want to say is that we got to prioritize our faith over fear. Faith, you got to prioritize faith over fear. You know, there are so many, even COVID, like, you could be frozen in place and not move, not touch a thing. You could just be, you know, and at some point you just have to say, God, You got to do what, do what makes sense, right? Let's say science does not contrast with faith. I know people have taught that for years, but that is not true, right? They go hand in hand. They do go hand in hand. You pay attention to that science, and then you know that we serve a God who specializes in impossibilities, not foolishness,
right?
but impossibilities.
That's it. And it's the funny thing. So it's just like almost. I always say that I'm spoiled, right? But working for the Food and Drug Administration, I work side by side, know the scientists, so we get the information. So in March, I know I used to work with the NDAs, the new drug application, so I know the process, so I know the speediness. So I was like, So I know that it takes a year, and even when they expedited, they were not going to be able to do it in time. In March the 3rd is when we started working from home. They told us, grab whatever you need to because you will be working at home for the remainder of the year. So I kind of like was able to get that mindset going with that. And then church, man, we talked about this last year from Lent season.
Right.
That was just like oh my God, that was just like a blessing. But even there, so I felt my walk getting even stronger and stronger and stronger. And so I meditate and I pray on my own. And even when I get sermons or lessons, I study them on my own. But it has been like mind blowing in terms of like God and what He has been showing me and doing, because I find traces from years ago, from months ago, from days ago, from immediate moments where He was giving me signs or something that I went through was preparing me for something. And so like right now, which most would consider to be the worst time in my life, it's actually I can find joy and peace and comfort. So it sounds crazy. And trust me, even me experiencing it as I go through, and Tasha would know because she would call and be like, you okay? Everybody's asking how you are, and I'm trying to explain to them, what it is. And it's so amazing to know that something that was like the weakest, forgiveness, which God helped me to overcome that, and deaths and funerals.
Wow.
My mother, like I know my weak points, so I know it has nothing to do with me except for me being obedient, having faith, and trusting God. It's not my strength. Everybody's like, oh my God, you're so strong. I'm like, don't put that on me. That's God's strength. My weakness, my strength. If you want to give me strength, say my strength is strong in my obedience, and my strength is strong in my faith, and my strength is strong in my trust that I have in God. It has nothing to do with me, but I'm so amazed. I'm serious. I'm so amazed. And when I'm talking to people, like they'll call me, I end up praying and consoling them. I'm good. I'm good. And so many things in terms of the preparation. I told about 10 people prior to my mom passing, like in September, of a dream that I had that my mother passed away. So I told about 10 people over time, right? And when I describe that feeling that I felt when I woke up from the dream, I remember saying, God, this hurts. Like, why would you let this be a feeling that I have from a dream? When I tell you all, the feeling that I felt was as if my mother had died right then and there. It hurt so bad. And it was like 3:45 in the morning. I couldn't go back to sleep. And I remember waking up my mom. So it was maybe like 7 o'clock. I was trying to wait for a reasonable hour. And I'm like, hey, what you doing? She was like, I'm asleep. And I was like, okay, I just needed to hear her voice. And then as things went on, she went into the hospital like days before that. you may remember that it was when the Tamara Rice incident happened, and I didn't look at the news. And you texted me, was like, "Oh my God!" And I was going to get crabs. And I wrote back to you like my mom was in the hospital, and then I think I later told you that I had a dream that my mother died. So you can imagine me being so scared as this is going on. Then my mother slipped into ICU, and I was like, "Oh God, okay, you know." So I went through my grieving period. Then my mom came home.
Right.
So when my mom came home, I was running uptown. My mother lived uptown. Normally I'd be like, "No, that's a 2 hours, 1 hour drive back. Then whatever I'm going to do for you, like, no, we're going to rotate everything." I was like, "What you need? What you want? What you want? What you?" I was tearing that road up back and forth, and it was because one of the meditations was from the Bible app. Early on, it was like, honor thy mother and father. So if you look at the Bible app, every day God was giving me a message in terms of what was going on. Fast forward that. The morning that my mother passed away, kid you not, I felt it. I felt something was going on, called her every hour in between my meetings, and my last voice message was, "Mom, if you don't answer your phone, I'm gonna call them people to come, and you know you don't like them just coming up to your door." So I'm joking with her because we're going around. So I started doing check. Hey, when the last time y'all talked to Mom? Kid you not. When I got the phone call, I was in a meeting. In a meeting, had already told my supervisor, 3:00 I'm going up with my mom. I gotta do some stuff for her. When I got the call in the meeting, I never answer my phone while I'm working. It was my sister. I walked over there, answered the phone, and she said, crying, "Mommy, Dad, mommy passed away." And they were like, "You have to come up here at a certain time if you're going to claim the body, or we got to do what we need to do." I told them, I got to go. And they was like, "I hope everything is all right." I cut that out. I stood right there for like 2, maybe like 3 seconds. I was about to lose it. And then I said, "God, you prepared me for this. God, you prepared me for this." And I repeated that about 10 times. And it wasn't 100% like I'm like, "All right, God, you prepared me for me. Let's go." But I can think straight. The only thing I couldn't figure out what the temperature was because I don't go outside. So crazily, I grabbed like 5 pair of shoes. I grabbed Ugg boots, flip-flop, all types of shoes so I could be prepared. My top was ready because I was on Zoom. My bottom wasn't prepared. But I'm saying all of this to say, and I'm leaving out so many different things, but the traces that God gave me and that feeling that I felt in my stomach. Like, I grieved my mother before she passed away.
Right.
I grieved her. And although it ended up being almost 2 months later, like every day, every conversation that I needed to have with my mother, I had it. Conversations I probably would not have had. I couldn't talk to her about death. I couldn't talk to her about insurance or whatever. But this is how God worked. I went to go get her mail. It was a piece of insurance paper. And I said, "Oh, is this your insurance policy?" She was like, "No, that's a new one they're trying to get. My insurance policies are under my mattress." So I immediately knew where to go and all of that. But it's so much stuff. We're not going to be able to go through that tonight. And I didn't even think that I was going to share. But when you started talking about the traces that God lines up, and the funny thing about it is, I told people, normally like my dreams and my visions, I get kind of, I feel like they're going to think I'm a creep. They're going to think and I normally don't. But I specifically remember sharing with you and my supervisor and a couple other people. So, everybody immediately called me, was like,
right,
"You had the dream." So they can understand my calmness. I'm brokenhearted. Like, my heart is everything reminds me of her. I got some stuff, I smell her. Like, all of that stuff. So brokenhearted, but yet so calm. That's an oxymoron. That doesn't go together. So, man, I'm telling you, faith in God.
Yeah.
He will do such impossible things where you think that thing gonna take you out. if you surrender and give it to him,
Right.
he gonna have you walking around looking like you strong. I'm like, yeah.
Well, he said, "My strength is made perfect in your weakness."
That's it.
And
That's it.
yeah, and I think that's why when I pray, and I know people probably be like, but when I say show yourself mighty and show yourself strong, show yourself as Jehovah Shalom. You know what I mean? Because you are our peace. You are our peace.
Yeah.
So we need that. We need that revelation. We need that in our lives, and He's faithful to do it. He's faithful. He's the great I am. He is,
and we're gonna transition. But I mean, like, it's mind blowing because, like, when I told you, when I had decided my mom's plot, and we're gonna talk about preparing for funerals next week with the finance people. But when I was identifying my mom's plot, because this was a change in tradition, we wasn't going down South Carolina, so I needed to research. You know, I'm an analyst, so I'm researching and going around, and I'm like, okay, Cedar Hill, here are the 3 spots. I feel them. I see a tree. These 3 had them test them out, and I'll come tomorrow. And it had gotten dark. I went in the cemetery, Washington National Cemetery, in the dark by myself, and it was only one lot that they were allowing you to buy a plot from. I didn't know where I was going. My best friend is buried there. She's in P, but then alphabets don't go anywhere, and I wasn't even nowhere near there. I went to this spot, and at dark time, it looked like it was completely empty. The light was shining to a degree on where I was, but it was dark. I'm at the cemetery, and I was like, I feel this. I said, I feel this. Here are the trees that I want, because I want a bench. I'm gonna spend some time there, so I need to be set up right. I was like, it's the bench and everything. I was like, what is, I said, this can't be it, because it looks empty. I was like, how do I figure out where I am? I look back, it was a silver sign shining. It took me about 20 steps. So yes, I walked 20 steps backwards to this sign, and the sign said D. So I'm like, if that's D, then I was by E. I was by the lot, the only lot that they would allow you to buy it. But the space that I picked, a church had already purchased that, so I couldn't get that spot. But I was able to find and identify another spot in E. I had written Washington National off and was going with Cedar. I had written it off, and something was just like, go in here in the dark time, and it ended up being the perfect place, because we're trying to build in this state. It ended up being like the perfect place. So that's another, it's so many things that I could tell you all. I think Tasha may be the one that knows the most of them. That, you know, like a lot of them. But Tasha been asking like every day, and I'll be like, Tasha, like, this would happen, right? You know what I'm saying? So Tasha get it, but it's like, I would have not felt comfortable telling anybody that is not, 1, wrapped up in Christ, and 2, don't know me. Right. You don't know me, because everybody cannot understand when stuff like this happens. So this is like the beginning of like so much, and God dropped so much into my spirit. I'm gonna let you close out so that we can talk about like the creativity aspect. But all the time while I'm grieving, I'm like, my mom will be honored. How do I consider the first night? How do I continue my mother's legacy? And my mother always said that I worked too much and da. So I was like, I didn't work this whole time. I didn't do FDA work. I've been off since the 17th, and I didn't do it work except for those that was already on the book. But other than that, I didn't do anything at all. But every time he dropped something, I will go to this page and put it there and put it there and put it there. The third night, I sent some information to a book publisher. Then I talked to Tasha. I was like, look, I got this idea. Like, you want in? And then we started vibing. So when I tell you, through your pain, when you really have it going towards a purpose, I could have spent all the time crying my eyes out. Last year, I think I cried out all my tears in November. I'm playing, but I cried a lot. But I could have spent my time crying and being like, oh my God, I'm going to miss my mommy. And because I reverted back to a child, started remembering all the little stuff. And my mother spoiled me all my life. I could have like focused on that and just sat in and just been like, but I was like, how do I continue my mother's legacy? My mother was a loving, caring person. How do I do that? And then immediately in my coaching certification, we had to like talk about what we're going to do with it. Girl, I had everything lined up. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But it has been blessing me. So my pain is really being turned into a purpose. My hurt, I'm finding my ways to heal. So you can definitely close out that, and then we'll transition into the topic with Tasha, which you definitely had the experience with your book and in the other project that you had. So any other closing that you want to so we can transition out from the loss of a loved one and also loss during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, those points that I gave really it help us to manage in this pandemic season. So I really want to encourage those who are in the midst of that to really prioritize opportunities over obstacles, that we make sure that we're asking God to give us insight versus eyesight, and then lastly that we prioritize our faith over fear. And for those who are in, grief is real, as I said before. I do know that God desires for us to heal. And I will say that when you're in the midst of it, it's very difficult to see the one of the things that my pastor said to me when I lost my mom was that when you love hard, you grieve hard. You know what I mean? So when you love deep, the pain is deep. I'll put it that way. Not that you grieve hard, but the pain is deep. You feel the loss. There is a void. It would be kind of foolish to say that there's not a void. And so I just want to encourage us in that doing the things that you're doing is finding what is the blessing in the legacy, because you don't want it to end there. You do want to. I started thinking very positively, and my book came out of my grief. What did they leave you that you have a responsibility to lead to the world? And I'll close out with that, because we can talk about this all.
That is it. And I'm so mad that we just didn't talk like that, because now I want to talk some more. But yes, that is it. That is it. What you said. And then another shout out to Mount Enid, and then Tasha, we're gonna go to you. The grief counseling classes. So every now and then I'll just pop up in one, or I'll be like, okay, I've been going through something, let me go to a grief counseling class. So I didn't go in December of last year, and after Christmas I started feeling some type of way. I went in January, and January's lesson was grieving a parent.
Yes, you did that.
So I was cleaning out my breakfast room, and that one paper slid across the floor. Now it is on my refrigerator. January.
Wow.
January. God was preparing me for this. So
we do have a session on grief on December the 17th. So if anybody's interested, they can go to the church's website, and they'll be able. We do that once a month on the third Thursday. So sometimes it's hard to talk about, but whenever you get ready, and you want to sit and talk, or sit and listen, or sit and connect, anybody that's interested can sit.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So Latasha Briscoe.
Look, we just finished having
church. The conversation. You said that you're listening, but we would definitely want to transition, because the third topic goes directly with it. And as Reverend Rice started saying, her book was birthed out of her grieving process, as well as her CD, a portion of it. So definitely want to talk about the creativity part of coping. It's definitely a mechanism to help you get through it. And it's not always simple as, okay, I'm gonna be creative and I'm gonna get through it. You may have bumps and different turns as you go through. You may cry on the paper, and that's all you do for the first step of it. But one of the things uh that we talked about, Tasha, is creating a platform for people who are grieving to express themselves, share their stories, have a place where they can get help. But the fundamental thing is that share their story so that they can help others.
Yeah. And I think that's important. And I'm gonna say for my own, when I was going through that grieving process, I'm a creative, but when I lost my mom, everything went out the door, and I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to pursue my passion, and I just let everything drop. And I found that when the time came for me to walk out of my mourning and start, I was still grieving and I was still hurting, but I was walking out of that mourning phase because, unlike Drain, I went through it a whole lot different, where I suffered depression and some more stuff. So I couldn't get out of bed and I didn't want to do anything. But when God said, you got something else to live for, my creativity came back. And my creativity is what has kept me going. One, because my mom was the main person that said, you are creative, you can do this. And so I felt like I was robbing her by not doing what I knew I could do.
That's real.
And I think when people find, yeah, and I think when people find something that, I mean, if we're going to call it our passion, then let it be your passion. Right. And I think when we find those things and then we allow, like you said, Reverend Rice, those obstacles to get in the way, then we kind of lose it. And it takes something to get that thing back. And I know for the longest time, even talking about my mother's death has been hard. The process that I went through, sharing that has been hard. But just watching you over the past couple of weeks, I'm like, I've just been asking myself, well, what the world took you so long? I've been saying that to myself, like, what the world took you so long? Because it amazes me to see how God has worked in you. But what I've learned is it wasn't overnight, because I questioned myself. I was like, okay, she didn't just lose her mom this morning and then heal overnight. No, I'm learning that there were, like you said, those traces, that you've been prepared for this. And so, of course, we were taking things a whole lot different, but there are people out there that really don't know how to handle it. And they don't have that preparation either, because they don't know God or they don't have anyone to talk to. And we all have our own story and we all have our own method of how we've coped and how we've dealt with things. But I honestly believe that when we start sharing, right, like that right there, that impact on changing those lives, just on this whole organic path that we can be on, that's going to be, that's going to be the thing that changes people's lives. That's going to be the way we honor the legacy of our mothers, and then continue that healing process for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One
and
of the things, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Reverend Rice.
No, I wanted to say too, and I think that's really important. I'm glad that you shared that, Latasha, because for somebody who's listening, you know, oftentimes everybody has to take their own path, right, and their own journey, and to come into their own realization. Even with my siblings, like I look at the three of us, and all of us have in our own way dealt with grief in a different way, right? And when I was able to step back and look at it, God is like revealing to me when I can come out of myself and see, and we've always been connected, but really see, okay, my sister handles things in a certain way. I'm more of a talker. She's not she's a talker, but she doesn't necessarily express her emotions like I do. She turns hers in, I put mine out, but because we're close, we were connected in our own way. So to your point, you may say, like, I met people when my father passed. My father died suddenly. He was killed in an automobile accident. It just happened like that. And we were all just like, just kind of just messed up. But one of the things that I remember 15 years after my dad passed, I ran into somebody in Sam's Club and they were like, I really miss your father. They started talking about what he had done in their life and stuff like that. And this lady started crying right before my eyes. And I'm like, when you live that kind of life where your death leaves that, your absence, not your death, your transition leaves that kind of impact on their life, that says something. And so for me, I was able to stand. I was able to speak at my mother's funeral. I was able to stand. I was able to do all of that. But there were times when I was sick to my stomach. And there were times, like I said, when I woke up that I wish I could get back to sleep because I didn't want to have faced this realization that this was actually another day. There were times when I would go to the phone and go to call my mother and realize that she wasn't going to answer. You know what I mean? There were times when I did, like Ladrine said, smell her and sense her and feel her and all of that. And in our own way, I don't know that grief just takes on all different forms and shapes. So I just don't want anybody listening to say what's wrong with me because it's easy to say, like for me, I was like, and I'm sure there have been many people that felt this way, like the world is still moving and I want it to stop right now. You know what I mean? I need for it to stop so that I can sit in my grief. And I think it's important, that we process how we process. Some people process by, moving and doing and shaking and some people create, like you said, creativity. God gave me, the book he gave me, which will be published next year. And it was about grief. And it's entitled to come next spring.
Okay, let me write that down.
2021, at least, right? Sing a night song. Because God said you're gonna have to, I want you to have good grief. You know what I mean? You're gonna grieve, but it's gotta be a healthy grief. You know what I mean? You gotta figure out whatever you do, whether it's walking, whether it's exercising, whether it's creating, whether it's self-expression, whether it's reflecting on, whether it's really because a lot of times when people are before you, you don't really know them like you know them until they're gone. When they're gone, now you sitting with them. You're really sitting with them now, and you like, dang, mom used to, that's what that meant. Like if I had one aha moment, I had a million after my mother left here about things. When people say you'll understand it better, bye. When they tell you, that your revelation is going to be progressive and there's things like even now, 6 years later, God is still showing me things about my mother, things about life through my mother's life, through my dad's life that I didn't understand. I'm like here now saying, I could have had a V8, I wish I had figured that out 20 years ago or 30 years ago. But God's timing is perfect timing. If it's now, it's now. If he had wanted it to be 20 years ago, it would have happened 20 years ago. And it's all good. And what I love about now, I do believe that, and we talked about that, I love that book, Big Magic, because it talks about creativity and it talks about, how creativity lands and how it's important to take hold of it when he lives. Creativity is like a butterfly. And if it drops on Latasha and Latasha God gives us this vision. God is committed to the vision, not to you.
Yes.
He's committed to his plans for you. But if you don't take it, it's got to go somewhere. Right. And so, but here's the thing with the grief, because you said something, Latasha, that really landed with me. And that is when I started to write this book on grief, healing grief through hymnody, what I realized is I hadn't healed. So I couldn't finish the book. I could not take somebody where I had not gone. And so I still have probably 2/3 of a manuscript that's not complete because I'm still going through my 6 years later. I'm still going through because I took from lament, it went from lament to celebration. And I have yet to be real, if I'm real honest, at that celebratory, really at that celebratory moment where I can say I'm there now, that I can usher somebody to the end, from beginning to end.
Yeah. So one point I'll make, and then we can kind of like give the sneak peek of the breakdown and the other information. But both of you all said something that just like stood out to me. One, Latasha, when you said watching me, you asked yourself, what are you waiting for? And then Reverend Rice, you're saying everybody grieves differently.
Right.
Everybody grieves differently at different stages. This is me now.
Right.
When my best friend died, it took me almost 15 years. Right. And the first month was in the bed, like, oh my God, thinking of all of these different things. But here, it is totally different. Saturday of Sweatpants and Chill. What did I say to Cherie Good? I saw Cherie Good. I've been praying for her every day, and I watched her go through the process of grieving her son. So I saw the possibility of what could happen. And God just lined up everything. He let me see that. Right. And immediately, the night of my mother's funeral, the night of my mother's death, he gave me the title of the nonprofit component. Everything was just dropped. And I'm telling you, all I was doing was putting them down in my notes, just dropping them in my notes. And I was like, he prepared me for this. Right. Listening to, man, okay, so we're not even going to go into that. But what I'm telling you is that everybody grieves differently, and you grieve at different phases and different stages. 15 years ago, I knew the Lord, like you, 9, I was 10. Right. I was 10 when I got baptized, and we've been here. But the growth and the level in terms of what we grow, I wasn't there. I couldn't understand why you took my friend away before we had our last conversation. And that was a different type of hurt. Right. Fast forward, I went through so many different, oh my God, the number of deaths, those were hard. But he took me through those as my lesson, because this is the big one. Right. This is the big one. So it did not happen overnight. And like I said again, if tomorrow or when I get off this call, he then say, I have comforted you. Now I have to use you to go. Whatever it is, I'm good. I know his capability, not because somebody told me, because of my experience of what I went through. And honestly, I was a little bit shy about talking to people about my space, because I felt guilty. That's the 2 days after my mother died, I was on the grief call. And I didn't say anything at the end because they were crying and, oh my God, 10 years ago. And I texted Reverend Smith and said, I did not say anything because I felt guilty for the level of comfort and grace that God has given me. And then scripture came right back to me. And it's like, baby, this is for my glory. It all had nothing to do with you. And so I began to tell my story, and knowing that it's God. But go ahead, Latasha. We about to preach, messing with Reverend Rice on here.
I know. Yeah, but that's why this project, when we were talking just a couple days after your mom passed, and we said, this book needs to be birthed. Right. And the whole platform, this whole project, and these matters of the heart, because people are in different places. And we definitely want to bring people together that have their stories to share, and they're ready to share, because they're, like you said, Reverend Rice, you're not finished yet, because you have to still go through that process. But if there are people that have their stories to share and they're ready to share, like, those are the people that we are trying to connect with and bring them together so that we can pull this project together, pull this book together, and share these matters of the heart. And do you want me to, can I go right into these details? Absolutely. Okay. All right. So what we want to do is bring together men and women who are grieving the loss of their moms. Whether you lost your mom or didn't have a relationship with your mom early on in life, like childhood, and then you had to eventually figure out how you were going to grieve her when she passed away without having that relationship in between. Or if you lost your mother, you know, maybe you were a child or a teenager and you lost your mom, and then you struggled throughout life because you didn't have those answers that you needed. Or if you're like us, you were an adult and you lost your mom, regardless of that age, regardless of that period, it's your mom. And I think that's the thing that people don't get. Like, we look at people and we're like, oh, well, you know, she was older or she was sick. It doesn't matter. It's your mom. And like you said, Dream, your mom spoiled you since you were little. And these are that bond and those relationships that we have with our mothers. Nothing can be that, but you know, we don't care about that. And it's the fact, you know, my mom, I lost my mom. She was 45 years old, died tragically, massive heart attack. Nobody can explain that away to me. And I was that person that when I had that same gut feeling that morning, and I'm like, my mom's not here. So when the phone rang, I already knew what to expect. Like, I knew what I was about to hear on the other end of that call. And I think there are so many people that don't get that preparation. And even though I had that bit of preparation, I still took it real hard.
Yeah,
because there was a whole lot that, yeah, it was a lot that followed after that. And I was like, why me, God? But what I did learn, what I knew is he's not going to put more on me than I could bear. But I had to keep reminding myself, because I kept saying, okay, you keep adding more and more and more. I'm about to break. I never broke. And I kept saying, okay, well, why I ain't break yet? Right. Why am I still here? You keep adding all of this on me. And I know there's so many other people that have gone through that or are going through that, and they don't understand why. Right. But this project, I mean, just to be able, like Dream said, she wasn't working. I'm gonna correct her. She was working because she was taking notes and she was brain dumping, and I was on a little mini vacation, but we were both brain dumping because there was so much that needs to be poured into this, and we want to make sure it's done the right way, because we want to make sure that we are honoring mothers, not just writing a book. And so it's very important. And I'm going to, I was supposed to be prepared to drop a link so that you can find out how you can join our call, so you can find out a little bit more about the book, but I'll drop that in the Facebook chat. But we definitely want to just make sure that we are honoring mothers as we do this, but also creating that pathway, creating a community where we can all heal together and learn from each other, and create a space where not only are we healing, but we're also able to help someone else through that process. So we want to create this. It's going to be a book about their own stories, the matters of their heart, but we also want to make sure it's a self-help, because there are pieces of the process that we may have skipped over. Right. And we may not have finished, you know, a certain phase in that grieving and that mourning process. So we want to make sure that we are, quote unquote, checking those boxes, so that when someone comes to us and say, how did you get through? You can't just say to the layman man, oh, it nothing but God. They're not going to get that. They're not going to understand that. Like, you got to be able to explain, this is how I got through. This is how I'm going through.
Yeah, and those are very good. And so Tasha will put in a link for an author's call. But knowing, like, our anthology is going to be different, and you know, everybody say that ours will be different, but ours is going to be different. Very limited number. So Tasha's one, I'm one, so that's already two. We're only allowing 12 authors to be in it. We don't want it to be where you have a limited space, the 2,500 words, and that's not like paying honor and a tribute to your mom. And we're actually, we have already drafted out. So I guess I was working, because we drafted out the skeleton of what a chapter would look like, and how we will involve specialists, counselors who actually practice in this, to have a partake in this. And it's not just a book project. grieving, is it recovered, or you're not rescued from it just by writing a book and writing out your expression. It will give a look from all different aspects. My story is not going to be everybody's story. Tasha's story is not going to be everybody's story. Beverly Wright's story is not going to be everybody's story. We all have different scenarios and different stories. So we're praying that as we go along, that it really touches someone in depthly, and it'll be space for you to write as well. But in addition to that, it's going to be an annual program that we have along with it. So it's a full year cycle where you will not only be in a community where you're receiving help, your chapter, you will have in one of those quarters, you will be able to talk, teach, and give the lesson as well from your experience, So I'm really looking forward to this, and we're definitely starting off with the mothers, but I definitely have this plan to be like a movement. Like Matters of the Heart came the night of, and it was like my mom had a heart issue. Tasha's mom, which I didn't know, had a heart issue. So I was like, Matters of the Heart. She was like, so I was like, enough said. I didn't come up with it. It was just dropped in the whole thing. So really, really looking for people to heal. And while my space is what it is right now, as I said, if something happens tomorrow or it shifts, I'm okay with that. God has done enough for me. But if it doesn't, so be it. But I know I'm just at the beginning of this healing process, and it's my mom. Right. So regardless of how I feel right now, I know that it's going to be a process. So I thank God for dropping it into my spirit so that I have resources, and already I create a community to help me to get through this, as well as me be in a situation to help other people. So I'm looking forward to this, excited. Can't wait for the author's call. Latasha has dropped the information in there. So me, Latasha, so it's only going to be 10 other people. So really excited and looking forward. We'll talk about the photo shoots and all the extra cute stuff, but it's really meant to help heal and take you through the process, not just write the book and leave you there. It is going to actually take you through the process. And I know I need it. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So I've dropped the link, and the link will take you to the Zoom link. So once you click that link and provide your name and your name and email address, that's all we really need. It'll take you right to the Zoom link. And we'll send the reminders out. So we'll get that list ring so we can send the reminders out. But we just want to make sure that if you're interested, make sure you're interested and you're serious about it. And we want you to be transparent. We don't want those surface stories. We want you to actually dig deep, because the surface stories, we all can Google the surface stories on how to heal and how to walk through mourning. But we need you to be transparent and really dig deep and be able to share your stories, because those are the pieces that everybody doesn't see. That's the things that we go through behind closed doors, when we don't want those visitors and we're not answering the phone. What did you go through during those points in your life when you had to deal with the loss of your mom? And that's the part, that we really want to look at, and we really want to be able to put into this book.
Yeah. And then speaking of book, Reverend Wright's book, Love That, Wit and Wisdom. So we have a post, and Reverend Rice, you can drop your link in there. I have it written on the flyer, but just in case when they flash it, everybody can't catch it. If you can type it into the feed. But also want to give you a huge shout out about your CD. My God, like everybody who has it, my friends who went through the process talks about how it blessed them. And I played mine till I couldn't play it no more. And I needed one for my car. So thank you for giving me another one. And I listen to it all the time. And although like the first time when you were creating it, I got it and I listened to it, but you have no idea how this time around, even like the words help me, like really tremendously, like seriously, like really bless me. I listened to the words, and I probably could say half of the stuff by heart. But this time around it was different. It was really different. So and I just want to make sure that one of the things that I failed to do was thank everybody for their support. So I have a picture of the flowers that I received that are in my breakfast room. It looks like a garden.
A garden.
Like the picture. So if the yes, there it is. They have it pulled up. That is my breakfast room from all of the flowers that I have received. So my staff and my job was the first one. Then Dr. Jennifer, then Dr. Cheryl Wood, then Mount Enid, then Monica, then Sacagawea, then one of my interns from years ago. I didn't even know she had my address. Then Monica, then I got edible arrangements. I got fruit. I got vegetables. I got everything. I got cupcakes, everything. So I just want to send a huge shout out to everybody. I have a ton of cards, checks, and money. Now that's the part of grieving. I feel like when I go through those and send out the thank you cards, that's it. I have not been able to get to that point. I know that it needs to be done. It's coming along, but for me, that part has been tough. I picked up the cards and I put it right back down. I picked up the sign-in book and I put that right back down. But I will tell you all, I'm not one. I don't have a green thumb.
I was asking if you had a green thumb. Don't you let them flowers die.
It causes too much care. I don't like care for anything. But when I tell you, these flowers bring me so much peace.
Yeah. Well, they're peaceful.
It's like a garden. Like when I walk, but mind you, some gonna have to shift because I had to move the table. So now I have like bar stools, and it's all 9 of the bar stools are covered with flowers. I got a candle. I have a pedestal like sign. So oh my God, the overpouring of everybody, the text messages, the phone calls, the prayers. Every day somebody called me and prayed for me. Every day. Well, the last one, Reverend Rice, I might have I don't know, I called you and was like, hey, can you call me and pray? But the first day was you, immediately leaving my mom's house. It was you. I pulled over. Every day it was somebody. I've been writing everything down. I cannot wait to write my chapter. The name of my chapter is He Prepared Me. He prepared me. So all of the information, my chapter is pretty much already wrote.
Right.
But just wanted to really say, me as an introvert, not really messing with people for years, I'm glad that transition happened. And I have got to know so many people because at a time like this, rather it was just coming to the doorstep or telling me to run outside for a minute. It has blessed me because I've stayed in the house by myself except for the first night. Every night by myself. But definitely appreciate the phone calls and all those. Sometimes I had to end up praying for y'all and saying a little word for y'all. I still appreciate it, count it all joy. I definitely wanted to get that out quickly. We are way over time. I didn't have 2 shows, but they don't carry over to this one right here. But quickly, any last minute words? And Reverend Rice, please put your information in the feed, your book as well as your CD. Bless me. Even though I feel like I was godparents to them. This time around was a whole different sincerity. It was a whole different. It's just different. It's just different listening to it.
Right.
Different. And I ain't even gonna say the joke, nothing. I'm gonna leave that alone. Yeah. So close out. Any closing, anything that you want to share with the audience?
I first of all, thank you so much. I just love you guys. I love Latasha. I'm excited about the project because again, as we said, our journey is not for us to keep it to ourselves, but is to give light and to give love that others might receive the hope that we've had. What God does for us, it's intended to sow a seed. So I want to thank you for that. I'm excited about the project. I also want to say to everybody who's experiencing all that 2020 has brought, and for those who may have be sick, those who have lost loved ones, be it for other reasons, be it for COVID or whatever. I just want you to be encouraged in knowing, be assured, no matter what it is that we go through, that there is the other side of through. And so it's so important that we hold on, that we understand that we go through for a season. I'm reminded when God came to Joshua and he said to Joshua at some point when Joshua was in his grief process, and the whole nation of Israel actually was grieving because of Moses' death, Joshua said to God said to Joshua, Moses, my son, is dead. Now get up. Right. And so I just want everybody to know that God does desire at some point that we get up, because there was a promise, right,
Amen.
that God had given them. And it was for Joshua to lead them to the promised land. And think about what would have been the outcome if Joshua had gotten faint-hearted and allowed his grief to overcome him. So we grieve, but at some point we've got to, and I think the getting up is doing the work, Latasha. I think the getting up is doing the work, Ladrine, and doing what you can to, what you're experiencing, what we go through, we know is designed to help somebody else get through. So I think I'm just excited about what God is doing in our lives and how he continues to show himself mighty and show himself strong. And we only get one, this is not a dress rehearsal. So we only get, we get one life. We get one life, and so what we give,
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Rice. It's so funny because I keep on about to go to something else. I'm not. I'm going to stick to the story. So, the only one thing that I'll say is another thing. The Sunday after my mom's passed, the sermon,
right.
Lazarus, Martha,
Yeah.
Mary. My mother's name is Martha. So I'm online shouting like I don't know what every time you can't talk about the story of Lazarus and Jesus without talking about Martha. Every time Pastor Co said Martha, I was like, oh my God, I'm online. And just everything. God prepared me for this. So we're going to transition over to you, Latasha. Closing words, closing thoughts.
I don't have much to add, but just, everybody keep each other uplifted and in prayer. Check on your people. Even just today, my family suffered a loss, and it's crazy because Dream had just texted me, said, have a good day. Just a beautiful message. And I said, thanks, you too. And not even 20 minutes later, I'm like, wow, that just tells us how quickly life can change in an instant. And just keep your family close, keep your young people close, pray for each other, and definitely check on each other. Not just during this time, but especially during this time, because of everything else. Like you said, there's so many other things that's going on as well, but life is going to happen, but we just need to be extra prayed up now.
Yeah.
Amen. So again, sincerely sorry for your loss, and I've been praying for your daughter all day long.
Yeah.
I'm sincerely praying for her because I know that she was close with your cousin. So sincerely, and I'll definitely keep y'all lifted up in prayer. So to everyone that's watching, thank you so much for hanging in there and tuning in, and thank you all for your comments. They're saying how much this show today has blessed them tremendously. Saka Jawea and Zakia always get like the bomb comments for Franisha. But Yolanda said, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine, comes to mind when with this segment. So one parting tip that I have for you all: go to the old school gospel music. Lord have mercy. I've been in here from the closet and like I'm telling y'all, and I can't sing. My whole house has been a concert. Whenever my daughter came
in the room, Jesus is my doctor.
Yes.
That is my song. The old song. So I grew up on James Cleveland.
All right.
And my first album was Tremaine Hawkins. So I know all the words from Change. I didn't know what it meant. Going up to yonder, all of those. But y'all know my go-to is The Battle Is Not Yours. I got a whole Yolanda Adams playlist. And then y'all check out CeCe Winans Never Lost. Like that song was the song that I listened to going up to my mom's on the day that she passed. I sent it to you, Reverend Rice, from the day that we had Latasha's thing, but it had a different meaning. That's right now. That's my get through song. Like the words to that, like God never lost a battle. So everything that you're going through is meant to happen. It is on purpose, and he always wins. So it's everything that you're going through is meant to do. That has blessed me so entirely. Like never lost a battle, and the battle is not yours. So y'all just go look up. Whether you do Spotify or either Apple Music and do old school music.
Yeah. Don't sleep on LaShawn Pace Road either, because LaShawn will take you. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So we probably should do like a part 2 with this, because we really have to go, and it's still online too. So all of us just as crazy is whatever. But I love when the dialogue is so good and it's helping people. But oh my God, I have so much to share about my experience that I can't wait. And I mean, even yes, in the book it will go, because I'm lining out that, and I actually think I can coach anybody his need help with burying a relative or whatever. I'm experienced. I'm serious. I'm experienced with that. But nonetheless, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for all of your comments. I will go back and they naming names. Tasha Cobbs. That's a whole different. That's a whole different.
Yeah.
Kiara Sheard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So her new album is everything. Is everything. We need to have a show just talking about the songs. Just talking about the songs.
If you see, when you say Kiara Sheard to me, I'm going back to, I cut my teeth on The Safest Place when she was 9 and singing with her mother. It's in the will of God.
Yeah.
Now, if y'all want Kiara, I'm still telling y'all to go back old school.
You telling us to go back to
Kiki. I want y'all to check out Kiki.
Her song, He Keeps Doing It For Me.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
That's my song.
Okay.
Write your favorite song. Write your favorite song in here. We're gonna come. Tasha
make
is
a playlist.
One with all the playlists. So yes, so we're gonna put y'all songs in here. We're gonna have a playlist. But thank you all again for tuning in. Thank you all for the support. Thank both of you also for the support. Reverend Rice, thank you for my call on a dime, and you just like your little prayers, you just be having them so special for me. But sincerely, I appreciate both of you so much. Tasha with your check-ins, and I'm like, okay. She like, I'm telling everybody, you okay? I'm okay, y'all. So next week on the show, we're going to kind of like continue like in this thing. This is my life of what's going on right now. So next week is the financial money making Monday. So what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be saying goodbye to 2020, and hello to 2021. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about are the 3 E's of moving forward. So we're going to talk about establishing spending plans for the holidays, estate planning tips. That's like a huge one. And then economical 2021 projections. So it is the 3 E's for an effective financial transition. I had to find my paper. I'm always just trying to say stuff out hot, like, God, just drop it to me. But he's like, no, baby, get your notes, right? So thank you all so much for tuning in. I've missed y'all for the past 2 weeks, but life is what it is. So take care, and I'll see you all next week.